Good afternoon, good morning. Hope you are doing good. Got a joke. Did you hear about the tortilla that made a song? Nah, kidding. It was more of a rap. All right, let's get into it. So, year 10, we are doing um we are factorizing monic quadratic trinomials. What in the world are these? All right, first thing to note is when I say quadratic, it just means that x squared is my highest power. And you'll soon learn that that kind of means we're going to have some sort of weird shape. You're going to learn about that shape later. Don't worry about it. If you see an x squared in your equation, just know that we are working with something called a quadratic. What is a trinomial? Well, trinomial means three. And so we're talking about these three terms where you're going to have some sort of x squared term, you're going to have some sort of x term, and you're going to have some sort of term that doesn't have any x's. Okay, so there's three terms, one with an x squared, one with an x, one with nothing. And then monic just means that I have one lot of x squared. So as you can see, these two examples below, these are all monic quadratic trinomials because we all have a single x squared, tick. We do have an x squared, which means it's quadratic, good. And we have trinomials, which give you your three terms, which is your x squared term, your x term, and your term without any x's. Okay, so whenever you see this, I want you to recognize that we are doing these monic quadratic trinomials. Okay, now how would we factorize something like this? Because we don't have a common factor. So we do between the first two, but the third one kind of makes it awkward. So we're going to use this new method called PSF. Okay, so PSF, it stands for product, sum, and factor. In case you've forgotten, product is times, sum is plus. Now, we want the product of the last term. The sum of the middle term. And the factors are your factors. So I'll explain. But when I say product, it means that I want numbers that will multiply to give me this last number here. Okay, so positive 12, positive 8. But then I want to find something that will sum to give me those two numbers. Now, looks confusing, but I will show you how it works. Please make sure when you're doing this method, you keep your terms in order. So you always start with your x squared term, and then you have your term with the x, and then you have your term with no x's. Okay, let me show you how this might look like. So for example, factorize x squared plus 7x plus 12. So just for the first couple, I'm going to do my working out so you can see what I'm talking about. Product is of the last term. So my last term here is 12. My sum is of the middle term, which is, in this case, it's 7 because there's my middle term there. Now, if I'm talking about my factors, I'm talking about two numbers that will multiply or product to give me 12 and sum to give me 7. So the easiest way is always to start with your pairs of 12. So it could be 12 and 1, but that won't be it. It could be 6 and 2, but 6 and 2 will give me 8. But 4 times 3, those will be my factors because 4 times 3 is going to give me positive 7 if I add them together. Okay, so it just means that 4 plus 3 is 7, but 4 times 3 is 12, which is our product and our sum. And once you have those two numbers, it is as straightforward as putting them into brackets. It's going to be x plus 4 in one bracket, and then x plus 3 in the other bracket. Now, if you are unsure that this works, go expand it out and double check that once you expand it, you do end up with this here. Okay, so that's your PSF method. Let's do a couple more to make sure we got it. Let's try this one here. So PSF. Now, product is always going to be of your last term. So our last term, again, is 12. But this time, our sum is our middle term, which is 8. Okay, so the 12 and the 8, that's where they come from. And I'm trying to think, what are two numbers that multiply to give me 12, but will add to give me 8? Okay, now for me, I know that these ones are going to be 6 times 2, because I know that 6 times 2 is 12, but 6 plus 2 is 8. Okay, so this is where you're going to have to do a little bit of work in your own head. And now the way that this works is because my factors are 6 and 2, that's what goes in my brackets. So x plus 6 is in one of those brackets. The other brackets is x plus 2. Okay. If I go to the next one here, same thing, PSF. Our product is going to be of our last term, which is 40. Our sum is going to be of our middle term, which is 13. And I'm trying to think, what are two numbers that times together that give you 40, but add to give you 13? Okay, now I always like to start with the products because there's less products, there's less options for products, whereas some I can have like so many. So I think, what are two numbers that multiply to give me 40? I could go 4 and 10. That would give me very close to 13, but not quite. I could do 20 and 2. That could give me 22, but not quite. I would see here that 40 would be 8 times 5. So that would be my two factors for this one. So again, that means you're going to have your two brackets, and it's going to be plus 8 plus 5. Those will be your two numbers. Okay, I think we've got a couple more. They get a little bit trickier as we hit some negatives. And so I'm going to blitz through these ones for you. And for these ones, I'm just going to work with, I know that that's my product. I know that that's my sum. Okay, so I'm thinking, what are my two numbers that will multiply to give me 24? Actually, I'll do one more. So my product here, this time I want my product to be minus 24. And I want my sum to be negative 10. So when there's negatives, you have to think a little bit harder. Let's just think about our product. So 24, I could do 8 and 3. That's not gonna get me to minus 10. I could do 12 and 2. Okay, now 12 and 2 would work quite well. I could also do 6 and 4. Now I have to figure out which one would work well. So looking at this, I want minus 10 and I want minus 24. So if I do minus 12 and positive 2, if I add those two together, minus 12 plus 2 equals to minus 10, which is what we want. But then if we have minus 12 times 2, that gives us minus 24. So that means these are our two products. So for this one, because I've got a minus now, one of your brackets will read x minus 12 and the other one will read x plus 2. Okay, so we've got that. Let's try these last two. And so again, this will be practice. I'm going to go the short route this time without writing PSF. I'm just going to note that I want to multiply to give me minus 28, but add to give me minus 3. Okay, so there's minus 28, minus 3. Anyways, so here I know I'm going to have these two types of brackets. I know it's going to be x and x. Now, what are two numbers that will multiply to give me 28? I'm thinking it could be 14 and 2, or it could be 4 and 7. Now, looking at these two numbers, I can see that probably 4 and 7 is more likely to get me minus 3. So here I'd have to think it's probably going to be minus 7 and positive 4. And I think that would make some sense. Because, yeah, if you times them together, you'll get minus 28. If you add them together, you get minus 3. So it's just going to be minus 7 plus 4. And for the last one here, you just have to be careful with your negatives. I know I'm still going to get a bracket and a bracket starting with x. For this one here, you'll think of two numbers that will multiply to give you 45. It can be 15 and 3, 45 and 1, and then probably the most obvious one is 9 and 5. Now, looking at these pairs of numbers, which one is most likely to give me 14? It'll definitely be 9 and 5 because 9 plus 5 is 14. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Now, for this one here, be careful because there is a positive 45, but my sum has to be negative 14. So in my mind, it has to be minus 5 and minus 9. Because if I multiply a negative with a negative, I get my positive 45. But if I go minus 9 minus 5, that gives me my negative 14. So I've got x minus 9, x minus 5. That's my factorization. Okay. Have a go. Take some time. It takes a bit of practice, but enjoy, and I'll catch you guys later. All right. Bye.